join me inside my writing yurt. Come on. Hi, for those of you just joining us, this is Ask Cozy Grammar. I'm Thomas, and I'm speaking to you from my cozy writing yurt, where it's raining, so you may hear the sound of rain on my writing roof. Our fourth question today comes uh, from Sarah A. And she asks how to master spelling. The question is really, how do we become a master speller? So I wanted to give 3 tips for not just learning, but mastering the art of spelling. First, read. Read as often as you can and pay attention to each new word that you see. This is actually the most important step because the apparently simple act of paying attention to noticing a new word stimulates something in our minds, in our brains, which becomes more alive uh, when we're looking at something new. It's actually called, I think, the novelty centers of the brain. And just by spending a few moments looking at the new word, we are priming our mind. We are preparing our mind to take in that new information more deeply and more thoroughly. Spend time just looking at the shapes of the letters, the shapes of the words, the pattern of the word as a whole. One of the things that people sometimes become confused about with spelling is they think that spelling is about remembering the individual letters. However, our mind is a better ally than that, because if we start to remember, or I should say, if we start simply to notice groups of letters, those groupings of letters imprint themselves on our mind, into our memory. And so rather than remembering, if you have a 6-letter word, remembering, oh dear, I have to remember 6 things, we may actually only be remembering 2 things, the first 3 letters and the last 3 letters, or ideally, all 6 letters as an entire picture, an entire word picture, if you will. So once you've spent some time with a new word, you may also want to understand what the new word may mean if you haven't heard it or read it before. Now I'm going to give you an unusual tip, which is I'm going to say don't look up the word in a dictionary yet. Instead, look at the word in its context, in the context of its sentence or its paragraph or its song, wherever you encounter this word, and see if you can't guess. See if you can't substitute another word for that word and make up something that might be the meaning of that word. Again, this is continuing the process of allowing your attention to spend time with that word. Then you can look it up in a dictionary and make sure you're right. And if you're right, great. And if you weren't right, great. You've already given your mind additional information with which to remember that word and almost by happenstance to remember its spelling. The simple act of paying attention can yield wonders. So that's the first tip. Here's the second tip. Learn basic spelling rules. Spelling in English, particularly in English, can be particularly strange. English has words that come not only from many different languages, but also within the English language from different time periods in the language. And spelling has changed over time. Pronunciation has changed over time so that we have some very strange spelling. And this can lead to odd examples. Even so, learning some basic spelling rules can help. Our free cozy spelling course, for instance, includes a set of Marie's handy spelling rules, which can help get you started. And I'm sure you can find rules other places on the internet. So starting to look at the rules is also a very important part of the process. But perhaps most important is my third tip, which is to use the creation of silly stories to help remember the unusual words. Now, what am I talking about? Here is the thing. When we learn spelling rules, rules are an abstract entity, and abstractions are particularly difficult to remember precisely because they're abstract. They're removed from our usual experience. And not only that, there are also many exceptions to the rules. In English, we have lots of spelling rules which say most of the time do this, but sometimes do this other thing. And you have to remember the most and the sometimes all together. So, what do we do in these cases? The usual thing is to sort of cram it into our minds, to learn it by rote, which is actually a very unpleasant experience, or at least it can be. My experience is that can be quite unpleasant. Here's a much more pleasant and, in fact, much more effective way. You can create crazy or silly stories that are completely unique to you uh, to harness the imaginative and the storytelling capacity of our mind. Let me show you an example. There's a word in English which comes from Greek, chaos. Now, if you had never seen the word chaos spelled before, you might think it's something like chaos, like maybe K-A-Y-O-S, chaos. That would be a very logical spelling for the word chaos, but chaos is instead spelled C-H-A-O-S. It looks like it should be pronounced chaos or chaos, but it's pronounced chaos. So here we have a challenge. And our challenge is to remember that chaos is spelled with a CH. Now we could just bam that into our head in a kind of violent learning act, or we could use the much more powerful capacity of our imagination. So here's an example of how I would make up a story for this word. I would think, okay, I need to remember the CH. I have to remember there's an H in this word, even though I don't hear it. So that H, look at that H. To me, that H looks a little bit like a ladder. You can see it has a little rung. It's like a ladder with one rung, if you will. And suppose that my house, suppose my cozy writing yurt, suppose I've been busy writing a book and I've just left my books and papers and my shoes and my backpack all over the place. So my house looks like a mess. My cozy writing yurt looks like a mess. It looks like, well, chaos. It's so messy, in fact, that when I need to get my ladder to get a book off the top shelf, I can't even find my ladder because it's buried under all of that chaos. So I need to find this buried H, this buried ladder in the middle of the chaos, but it's hidden. And it's hidden right next to that C. And suppose I can look around until I see my ladder, and I see that my ladder, the H, is next to the C. Now, this is all a very silly story, and it's all very particular to my own imagination. But notice that by creating this story, when I think of the word chaos, or I read or I hear the word chaos, I think, oh yeah, chaos, ladder, H. Chaos is spelled C-H-A-O-S. And the profound benefit of a method like this is that it taps into your own unique imagination. You may take the word chaos and make a completely different story with it that would help you remember the word in your own unique way that has nothing to do with ladders or messes or cozy writing yurts for that matter. But this capacity not only, or this practice not only gives us more time to allow our attention to be with the word, it harnesses, like I've said, the imaginative power, the story making power of our mind, and then we'll have that word forever. We'll never forget the spelling of that word again. So I hope that these three thoughts, spending time with words, learning spelling rules, and using the imaginative and storytelling capacity of the mind to remember words, will help you become a master speller. Let me know if that helps or if you have any further questions.